Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the Ben 10 Retrospectives. And today, we're going to be looking at episode 39 of the original Ben 10 series, / the final episode of season 3, The Visitor. And in this episode, the Tennysons are now in St. Louis, and we have absolutely no explanation for how they got back to America from Egypt. They're just there because they're just there. And while there, Max seems to be in a funk because apparently Max met his wife, Ben and Gwen's grandmother, in St. Louis, and being here is just making him miss her. So, however, in the middle of this, an alien attacks, getting right back into status quo. This strange lizard woman with 3 eyes and telekinetic powers, and she singles out Ben and attacks him because he's wielding the Omnitrix, and she's just demanding, "Where'd you get that? What are you doing with it?" And of course, Ben, being Ben, isn't open to answers, especially since she's attacking him. So he goes alien and fights her. But in the middle of their fight, Max comes in his plumber suit and blasts at the alien. But when he threatens her and warns her to stay away, she recognizes his voice and even calls him by his name. And Max sees her. He turns out that she's an old flame of his. Her name is Zylene. They used to work together They used to work together when they used to work together. They're both plumbers. So pretty much so of course he accepts her with open arms. They stay in. She becomes friendly. She and Mac, and of course Ben just does not like her. He doesn't trust her. He doesn't really, and he doesn't like how lovey-dovey she's being. So how lovey-dovey she and Max are being, and so they end up asking Xylene what she's doing back on Earth, and she reveals that, of course, she's here for the Omnitrix, but not to take it. It turns out that she was the one that sent it to Earth originally. And it turns out that the ship that in the first episode, the one that Vilgax was fighting, that was her ship. She was the one transporting the Omnitrix, and she was the one duking it out with Vilgax. But while in the fight, she realized it's a lost cause. I'm not going to win this, so she sent the Omnitrix into a pod and blasted it to Earth for safekeeping. But at that same time, one of Vilgax had sent some drones under her ship, and it crash landed, and she crash landed inside a pod, and she was put in a hibernative state until she was awoken at the beginning of this episode by a couple of I think I don't know, skiers. No, not skiers. Snowmobilers. Yeah, they're woken up. Because I think she woke up in, I think, either Alaska or the Antarctic. I don't know. I'm not good with geography. I'm not. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. But anyway. So she wants to. So of course she wanted to know where the Omnitrix was. She didn't know that Ben was Max's grandson. So in the meantime, after she tells the story to Max, she and Max go for a walk. Ben still doesn't trust her, so he decides to go Wildvine and trail them because I think he can become part of fauna, leaving Gwen to deal with the dishes, and an off-screen thing that somehow ends with everything breaking apart. So Ben eavesdrops on them talking, and it turns out that when Max was still young, Xylene blasted into space, she invited him to come with him, but he didn't because Vilgax was around at that time. But now she's giving him the same offer again, only this time Vilgax isn't around and Vilgax is done for. So maybe he has nothing left. So when Ben hears this, he's just even more mad. He goes back to Gwen, is in a huff, but while there, they're both suddenly attacked by a drone, one of Vilgax's drones, the same drone that was on Xylene's ship. As it turns out that the snowmobilers went back to the site to try and find Xylene because she scared the crap out of them. Only this thing came out, and then when they ran away, it took their snowmobile and integrated its parts into it, like in the Alliance episode when one of Vilgax's drones merged with Joey to become Rojo. So now it's followed Ben. Now it's come here. It's after Ben because it's programmed to go after the Omnitrix. So Ben fights it. Max and Xylene come into it, and they all are fighting it. But this thing is just getting strong. But this thing is not giving up, and it winds up taking parts in the rust bucket. Ben tries fighting it off, but it blasts Ben right into the rust bucket, destroying it, and everyone manages to work together and using their powers and abilities to take it apart. And so everyone thinks it's destroyed, and they begin rebuilding the rust bucket. They begin rebuilding the rust bucket again, but and of course Ben's not doing a good job because he's now Diamond Head and he's doing it. And Xylene says that he could have gone upgrade and done it. And of course he's still mad at her for everything, just because he just doesn't like her, and he knows what she offered to Max, and so he's just finally, when he's just fed up with her, says, "Well, if you think I'm just such a screw up, why just send me the Omnitrix in the first place?" To which she responds with, "He was not the intended target. He only found the Omnitrix because it was to sway off of its directed where it was supposed to go. In reality, it was originally going to Max." And so Ben is distraught about this, which kind of confuses me, but I'll get to that in a minute. And so he just runs off, finally just fed up. He can't take anymore. He yells at her and runs. Gwen follows him to see what's the matter, but he says that it's not just that gets to him. It's the fact that she made the deal, that she said to Max, that she gave the invitation to Max, and Gwen and Ben think that Max will do it. But in the meantime, while they're gone, the robot comes back because it wasn't destroyed fully. Some parts of it managed to get away and merged with, and took some more parts from a car, and so it attacks them and takes Max because he's still in his plumber gear. He's still all dressed up, and it manages to grab him and integrate his plumber gear into it. And then when Ben and Gwen come back, it runs off. So Ben, of course, and so everyone figures out that the robot drone is doing this just to try and get to Ben because he knows he'll come after it. So Ben, Gwen, and Xylene have to work together. Ben has to get over this anger with her, and so they try and follow the robot because they're in St. Louis. It's gone to the docks of St. Louis to gather more parts. So Ben, Gwen, and Xylene work together try and get it. Ben distracting it while Gwen and Xylene go in for the attack. But while they're able to take some of it apart, it's still functioning, even integrating a tank into its design, and still having Max. So they realize they need to. When Ben and Xylene are hidden, Xylene tells Ben that we need to destroy the original droid. And so Ben decides that maybe we should do upgrade, but then Xylene says she has a better idea, and so she messes with the Omnitrix and unlocks a new alien for Ben, the fourth new alien of this season. At this point, it's not even really that big a deal. It's not a big deal in this episode. And this alien is a small woodchuck thing with weird teeth, a round belly. It's kind of like a small green gummy bear, and he's called Upchuck because he can eat anything because he's got all these weird tendrils in his mouth that can go out and grab stuff, and then he can shoot out what Ben calls exploding loogies. So Ben goes to fight the robot using Upchuck. He's eating all the parts and just shooting loogies at this thing until finally he's able to get to the main part of the robot. He eats it, and of course, without its main processor, the thing just falls apart. Max is safe. Ben spits it out. It's no longer functioning, and well, that's kind of all she wrote, really. And so at the end of the episode, Xylene goes back into space because early in the episode she called her ride and it was going to be there in a while, and Max tells her that I can't go with you because I still have my kids. They're my whole world. I can't just abandon them. And so Xylene and Max kiss, and she goes off, and everything's back to normal. So before I go on, I'm going to compare this episode to the other season finales, mostly because I think this episode aired at the wrong time. I'm not saying that this episode was supposed to be aired at a certain time or whatever. For all I know, maybe it was originally planned to be the final episode, or maybe it was something else. I don't know. But honestly, when it compares to the first two seasons, those finales were big and gigantic and all that nice stuff. Like Secrets had a nice little build up with Vilgax throughout the season until finally had the epic battle with him. Back with a Vengeance admittedly did not have as much build up because you can say the battles with Kevin were only 2 episodes and they really didn't hint at anything, but it was still a nice episode with I think seeing Ben being able to transform to all his aliens at will, and the second half being so rushed as Ben is constantly having to fight them off and do all this stuff. It was still fun. It was still fun. But for some reason, this finale is it's kind of underwhelming. It's not bad by any means. It's still a good episode. It's just that in comparison to, as the final episode of season 3, it doesn't really feel that grand, which makes me believe that maybe this is just my personal theory. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but I think this was supposed to be aired earlier because it felt just like another episode. It was a good, again, it's a good episode and has some nice revelations, but otherwise, it's still just a good episode. Because personally, for me, I think the return slash Be Afraid of the Dark was meant to be the intended season finale. That had build up throughout all of season 3. It had a cool payoff with the not. It had a cool payoff with some good villains and some grand stakes. It actually did feel big, and now that I think about it, maybe the finale could have been the end of the Be Afraid of the Dark would have worked because you have a whole season gap of filling it up. So they said that could have been enough time for Ben, Gwen, and Max to get back to America. So I don't know. That's just my own little theory, and it might be wrong. But otherwise, I think the episode's fine for what it is. I like that we see more of Max's plumber history. I mean, seeing him interact with Xylene, and I usually complain about Ben being bratty in some occasions, and admittedly some of his bratty tendencies are kind of in near do kind of get a little on my nerves in this episode. But unlike other times when he's been bratty, this time it really does feel like there's something to it. Because here, when Ben first meets Xylene, she attacks him, so of course he would doubt her. But then when he sees her getting lovey-dovey with Max, he's jealous. He even admits it. I was jealous. He's jealous that what she's doing, and it just gets worse when she makes the proposition to Max. Maybe you should come with me. And again, it's all understandable. He feels threatened by her, and not just because she attacked him, because she might take away his grandfather, which I think really is a good enough way of creating a conflict without feeling forced. Okay, I think another thing that I like is I think Eileen is kind of nice. She does work as a nice romantic. She does work as a nice partner for Max. I do kind of like that I like that we do see more of Max's love life. A lot like her when he was younger, and I like her power. I don't like just kind of like, and I just like her. She's a skilled fighter. Her powers are interesting, and she does know the Omnitrix. And that's another thing. I like that we get more history with the Omnitrix. That there is something more to it. There was something more to it, and I think the revelation that it was originally meant for Max kind of helps make some things work. Because I read in supplemental material that the reason the Omnitrix jumped onto Ben was because it recognizes DNA, and because Xylene was sending it to Max, and since Ben is Max's grandson, of course, his genetic signature is very similar to Max's, so it mistook him for him. I'm not saying that that's the whole case. I'm not saying that's the whole case, because again, you have to look up supplemental material to look at that. And admittedly, I'm okay. I like the idea that there was an explanation for why the Omnitrix was just sent to Earth, as for safekeeping, and there was an intended target. But my big problem with this is the fact that Max was, or as Eileen, that Ben is just no, sorry, that Ben is upset about he got the Omnitrix by accident. Which, if you rewatch the first episode, it kind of feels like that was the case, because it crashed into space. Of course, it veered off course, but it crashed down, and it just looked like dumb luck. Ben just found the Omnitrix. That was how it was. That was how it was. It was just in space. If anyone, I'm guessing that if anyone else wandered out into the forest and then found it, they would be the ones. They would be the ones with the superpowers. Again, they did something similar in Gwen 10. The Omnitrix the Omnitrix didn't have an intended target. It just, someone was nearby, jumps on us and attach itself. Boom, there you go. Case closed. So I don't know. Just seeing Ben get upset about that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And while I'm talking about this, I might as well talk about Upchuck as a new alien. And yeah, I think he's just nothing. He's not awful by any means, but admittedly, I've seen better. I've seen better aliens. He's not a bad alien. He's kind of, because he is useful in fights. He can do some impressive things. It's just that when you compare him to other aliens, eating and spitting powers are not as impressive. They're not awful. Again, he's not awful because he does have his uses, and he is done well, and he is used well enough in the episode. It's just that he doesn't. I don't really see a lot of situations where Upchuck would be a go-to alien. And I think even the series admits that, because I think throughout the rest of the season, or the rest of the series, he only appears like 2 more times. Once in one episode, and then once in a movie. So I don't know. That's just my own little thing. I think another big complaint is the villain, which it's really just a robot again. Well, not big. That's not a big complaint really, because the drone is still impressive. It really is cool how every time it can assimilates more parts into itself, it just gets bigger and bigger and becomes more of a threat, and just how tenacious it is to get the Omnitrix because that's what it's been programmed to do. Just get it, get it, get it. It does feel like it actually does feel nice. It's just that really there's nothing more to it than just size. There's no personality, there's no nothing. It's just giant robot wants watch because that's what its creator wanted. So that's really it. I think that's really all it is. It's still intimidating, but nothing great. So really overall, I think the episode's fine for what it is. It has some. I like seeing more Max's history. I like seeing Ben actually kind of having a nice conflict and even in the resolution, which is predictable, but it's still nice. But at least it's done well enough. I like the action. Of course, I like seeing Ben battle the robot. Again, just a fine episode. Nothing great. Nothing to. There's nothing great. Nothing great. It's nothing amazing. It has a. I think it's fine. It's just that I think this shit would have been a better episode to air, like somewhere in the middle of the season or in the middle of the season rather than as the final episode. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week where we look at the final season of Ben 10. So again, thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Take care.